Well, I am super excited because to introduce Mel, and I'm going to let you talk a little bit about yourself before we even get started, just the generals.
Okay, thank you. So thank you so much for inviting me to come and talk to you all today. As you can probably tell from my accent, I'm from the UK. I live in Scotland, work in Scotland, but I'm not Scottish, I'm English. So sorry if you're expecting a lovely Scottish accent today. It's me. I have been a professional organizer for 10 years. I started as a side hustle when I lived and worked in Dubai in the United Arab Emirates, and it kind of took off. So we moved back to Scotland, back home to Scotland about 7 years ago now. And yeah, so I'm obsessed with photo organizing, organizing anything really. I live in Dumfriesshire, which is a beautiful rural part of southwest Scotland, not far from Gretna Green, if you've heard of Gretna Green. And I live with my husband, my 13-year-old son, and two cats.
Excellent. Well, thank you for sharing. So let's get started on our list here. Tell me a little bit about your background and your interest in photo organizing and management.
Well, I'm sure, like many of you, I started being interested in all things photos and history and family history when I was a child. So I was that annoying, precocious kid at family get-togethers who'd go around and ask all the old people questions about what was it like when you were a child. But looking back, those old people were probably like 30 years old plus. I'm a bit embarrassed about that now, but it does mean that I captured all the family stories and people sent me their photographs, and that's just continued now. I'm 51 years old. I'm still the family archivist, and I was a museum curator as my first career. So photos and preserving our family stories have always been really, really important to me.
Excellent. Wow. And how have you found your clients?
So my clients come from a couple of different places. I mentioned I was a professional organizer first. I still have that element to my business, but I have a team of organizers now who help me with that. So a lot of the clients that we work with in decluttering and organizing their houses, we find photos, we find negatives, we find old VHS, cinefilm, etc. And so now that has brought me quite a few clients to the photo organizing part of the business. But also, I must say, being a member of the photo managers has been amazing because I have clients from all across the UK who find me on the directory. And then it's just word of mouth, really. So yeah, I have a lot of local clients, but I have a lot of clients all around the UK from the photo managers. So thank you.
Oh, that's wonderful. Well, it's working. Yay.
Yeah, it works.
And what do you love most about your job?
It's the people, isn't it? We meet so many amazing people, and through that, we get to learn about their families and their stories. And as I said, I love history, and it's just talking to people and meeting all these interesting people. You don't get that sitting behind a desk in Dubai. So, yeah.
Oh, yes, I'm sure. A big difference there.
Yeah. Yeah.
And what is one area that you don't like very much?
Oh, that's hard. At the moment, I'm really lucky to have quite a strong pipeline of photo organizing clients. So the bit I don't like is saying to people, I'd love to help, but I can't help right now. I can help in a few weeks or a few months, but I can't help you right now. And I find that really hard because people are so enthused at that point of sale where they really want to get started, and to be able to, you have to delay them. So I have a system where they pay their deposit to get booked in, and then I send them like homework, really, worksheets and things that help them to get their ideas together, to get their thoughts organized, to get their photos organized in a way that I can then start organizing them for them, if that makes sense. All the preliminary stuff. So I capture that enthusiasm right at the beginning. And then when I'm ready to work with them, they're then ready, completely ready to work with me. And it works really well. But I don't like that bit where you have to say, yeah, we can help, but not today.
Today.
Yeah.
Understand completely. And what is the format of your form that you send out to them? Tell us a little bit about
So it's a series of worksheets which are probably all that prep work that we ask for, that everyone asks for anyway. It's things like where are your photos? Have you, do an audit. So it guides them through a photo finding exercise, both digital and print. It is a worksheet about how they feel about duplicates. What do they want to do with duplicates? What do they think of as a duplicate? Because, there's lots of definitions. So I kind of guide them through thinking about what their duplicates might be and what they want to do with those duplicates. It's also about what kind of photos they want to delete. Many of us have hundreds of pictures of sunsets that don't really mean anything anymore, or we've been to the zoo and maybe we've taken 10 photos of a giraffe. We don't need the 10 photos of that giraffe in our photo collection. So it's a few almost like humorous examples, and asking clients to think about, do they want all the giraffe photos? Do they want all the sunset photos? Do they want all the photos that are blurred? That kind of thing. So it's getting them to think about the project so that when we're ready to get started, they know all the answers as to what they want their collection to look like at the end.
That sounds really good. And is the format that you send them like a Word document, or is it on a form? How is that done?
I'm not the most techie person, so it's by a Word document at the moment, but it is something that's on my very long to-do list, is to have that available digitally. But really, it doesn't matter too much because a lot of my clients are even less technically minded than I am. And so I want to still be able to give them that option of doing it on a Word document. Some of my clients don't even use email, so we do it by post. So yeah, I print it off and then I post it and they fill it in and they send it back because they're not comfortable with online, or they don't have a printer or that kind of thing. So to be honest, whatever works best for the client is how I want to deliver it.
Absolutely 100% on that one. What is your client's reaction when you complete a project? Like, what emotions do they feel? How do they share it with you? How do you capture that with your clients?
So that's an interesting one because it's quite varied. I've had the sheer delight and the tears and the strong emotions, but most of the time it's relief. It's that feeling that their photos and their memories are safe and they're preserved and they're accessible. And so there's that huge amount of relief that they're no longer dealing with. I think the last project was 42 photo albums plus two big bags full of loose photos. And they couldn't face looking at them because it was too much. And she said it was just the relief that knowing she had them all digitally, she had them all in archive boxes, that she felt she could now look at them and share them with her daughters. And that was just lovely. So it's relief, really.
What's your favorite story about a client's when you've completed a project with them?
Oh, that's difficult. I think it was probably that one I just shared with you, that this client had a few losses in her family quite recently, and so she just couldn't face going through all of that, two bookshelves full of big old albums, and then all of the loose photos around the house that came into me in two big bags, so about 2,000 loose photos there, and she couldn't make sense of them. She couldn't tell the story. She couldn't face opening an album because then it would lead on to more disorganization. And she was worried at the same time that if anything happened to the house, whether it be fire, flood, theft, that those tangible memories would be lost. So it was just sheer relief, really, that they were safe and they were no longer scary. They were no longer intimidating or overwhelming. They were just there to be enjoyed. And yeah, that was a real privilege to work for that family.
Oh, that's wonderful. That's wonderful. Yeah, I had a client that had like 16,000 photos and none of them were in an album. I'm
Mm-hmm.
not kidding you. They were all stacked in shoe boxes, and she was the same thing. Very relieved once she finally got all of the photos and stuff. Um, so what advice would you give somebody who has just started? Like, what are your top three tips that they can take the nuggets for you or more, and that you've learned over the years that you've been an organizer?
Okay, the first one is do what you can with what you've got now. So you don't have to invest huge amounts of money and buy all of the equipment and do everything all at once. If you're only if you only work on PC, for example, I only worked on PC when I first started. If you only work on PC and you don't have a huge amount of budget to buy, camera scanning equipment or anything like that, work with what you've got. So go out there and buy a fast photo scanner. Wait till you get your first deposit for your first job. Go and buy the scanner to do the job. And then you're on your way, you're getting started. And then as your confidence grows and your income and your reserves grow in your business, you can start investing on the technology that you need and the equipment that you need, and take the training that you need through the photo managers and elsewhere, and just build up gradually. I mean, I didn't know anything about Apple or Mac when I got started, and now I work with both PC and Mac clients, but it didn't happen overnight. It was only in kind of year two, I think, that I invested in a Mac and then started learning Apple, and then gradually went on through that. The second thing kind of leads on from that, is that you don't have to be the world's expert on photo organizing. You just have to know more than your client and have more confidence than your client, and know where to go and find that training and that information. Because the brilliant thing about photo organizing is that we do it in our own offices, don't we, most of the time? We're not there in front of the client with them watching every single move like you are when you're maybe home organizing. So if you don't know the answer to something, you can go and find it out in your own time, work on the client's photo collection, and then all they see is the end result and they're delighted. They don't know that you've maybe had a few sleepless nights, or you've had to do lots of training, or you've had to go out there and ask the amazing photo managers community for the answers, because you are more expert than them, and that's why they're paying you to organize their photos for them. So that
I
is
can't
the
agree with
second
you
piece.
more.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
I
and then
remember when I first started, the someone said, I have this extraordinary amount of negatives. Can you do negatives? And I said, oh, absolutely. I had no idea how to do negatives because I just started. Sure enough, I went to the Facebook page and Google, and I learned very quickly, but I had no.
yeah. And I think there's a slight opposite to that. If you don't feel comfortable, or you really don't want to do that, for example, if I didn't want to do negative scanning, then I would just say, no, I'm not the organizer for you. You know, don't feel pressure um,
Very good.
to
Yeah.
undertake every single thing that you're asked for. Make sure it's the next step in your development, or it's something that you really want to learn to do, because we're in this to be working for ourselves in something that we love. And if we're not loving it, what's the point? So yes, go out there and learn and use all these amazing photo managers resources, but we can't all be experts at everything. So if there's something that doesn't feel right to you, you don't have to take that work. There's
Well, I
lots of
really
other
like that.
organizers out there that you can refer work onto, and I've done the same. So yeah, just work to your strengths and always be developing and always be learning, but don't be afraid to say no if it really isn't something that you're comfortable in. And the third tip is just use the photo managers community. We're an amazing community, and we're all there to help each other. And that is, yeah, that's my third and best tip, I think, is just use the community, use the resources, use the amazing training. There's so much there. And compared to other organizations that I'm in, we are so lucky to have the photo managers and all the resources and this great team spirit that we have between all of us.
I love the phrase team spirit, because I feel like that's the same way, and to speak to your point, if you don't feel comfortable doing something, you can always go on the site and find somebody who you can recommend.
Yeah.
So because we are a team that helps and supports each other and wants to make sure we all do well. I think that's wonderful.
Yeah.
Wonderful. Any other tips that you might have if you were
Um,
just getting started?
I think if you're just getting started, the main thing is to recognize that you're in the early stages of your career, but this is a fantastic career, and just take every opportunity to be learning and to be developing and to be growing, and and have fun with it, because we really are very lucky, aren't we, to be doing this. And I'm just really thankful all the time that I get to do this as my job. Yeah. So enjoy
Excellent.
it.
Excellent. And we did get a question for operating systems and software options. Which format do you prefer or recommend, Mac or PC, and why?
I
That's a good.
That's a really good question. I always think that the best one to recommend is the one that you or your client feel the most comfortable with. Now, I love PC. As I said, I didn't use Mac until about 2 years into my photo managing career, and that was only about 3 years ago. And so, yes, I do use Apple and I do use Macs, and Apple Photos is a wonderful thing. But if you're not comfortable with it, if your client's not comfortable with it, if they don't have the budget for it, PC is great too. The most important thing is that your photos are organized, backed up, safe, accessible. And if for you that's a PC, which is for me, that's the one that I recommend. Yeah, but try both. You know, if you've got a friend that's got the operating system that's the opposite to what you have, try it out, ask them questions, have a bit of a play around it and see what you feel, because, you know, it may be that you're a secret Apple Mac lover and you just didn't realize until you got the chance to have a play around with it. So yeah, just keep your options open, but always go for the one you feel most comfortable with.
We have another question from our wonderful audience. Do you feel it is important to have personal organizing skills and business before starting a photo management business? Clearly, it gives you a marketing advantage, but many aspects wouldn't be in many, but many wouldn't be interested in the home organizing space in addition to that.
Yeah, no, not at all. I know there were quite a few of us that started off with home organizing and then went on to photos, but I don't think it's a prerequisite at all. Organizing photos is very different from organizing homes. You're not with your client most of the time, like you are with home organizing. Um, it's more of a lone working, isn't it? Photo organizing. You can be in your office in front of your screen and your scanner for days on end. So I do feel it's very, very different. But obviously, if you've run a business, whether it's home organizing, whether it's any kind of business, that is going to stand you in really good stead for starting a photo organizing business. And obviously, home organizing, as I said, we find lots and lots of photos, so it gives you a really good stream of pipeline of incoming clients and client work. So it is really, really helpful. And to me, it gives me the balance of going out there and working, you know, outside my office with that time in the office with the photos. So I really like that balance, but it's really up to individuals. But I think any kind of business experience, because marketing is key. You know, if you don't have the clients, if you don't have the sales, then you don't have a business. So as long as you are really focused on your marketing and you're developing your leads and your pipeline, then I don't really think it matters what you've done in the past, to be honest.
I have a lot of organizing friends who are in organizing, and I'm in a couple of organizing. I'm in North Carolina, and we have Carolina organizers, and I always say that they're too smart to be a photo organizer. And they say not something I ever want to do, so then they pass it along to me. But
yeah,
that would be a good tip, is to get to know organizers in your area, so that if they do want it and need the services, they have you available right at their fingertips. So that's great.
absolutely.
For a more technically savvy clients asking for advice on where to start with their collection, what flow do you recommend, i.e., organizing digital photo collections, creating a backup, and then print photos and memorabilia, backup strategies, or maybe where ways that you could share or enjoy?
Yeah. So I always recommend going with your digital first of all, because although your prints could look quite old and delicate and at risk, it's actually our digital worlds that are more at risk if we don't have a proper backup strategy in place. So I always start, or like to start, with digital. Obviously, sometimes clients override that and they want to do it the other way around, and that's fine. But I always think digital first and start off with the backup strategy. So there's no point organizing a digital collection and then you lose it all because it's not backed up properly. So we start with the backup process, then we organize the digital photos. And then that gives you a framework so that when you've organized the print and you scan it, they've got somewhere to go into. And that's the way I always recommend people doing it. Now, sometimes I work with clients who do most of the work themselves. They just need help with the strategy and with the particular technology that they use themselves. And so I do that as well. I don't always organize every single photo. Most of the time I do, but sometimes we have quite techie clients who just want the guidance and the accountability. So that's where we work. But it's fascinating, isn't it? When you start working with people digitally, you realize how many different ways there are of doing it. And very rarely have I had two clients whose exact same setup and exact same objectives are the same. So every project is completely different. And
Absolutely.
that's where we can really give our advice, because we've seen so many different ways of doing it. And we can then advise people how to do it with what they've got and what they're comfortable with, even if we're just giving them the advice and the strategy and that accountability. So
Agreed with that. And I always go off whatever the client feels comfortable. Sometimes I'm just the coach and we meet once a month, and then
yeah,
sometimes they want to hand it to you and just you do it all. So
yeah,
it just depends. And I agree. Unless they understand the system of backup, you don't have much to go on.
yeah,
And
awesome.
it definitely is the most important. I think you make excellent point there. Um, so, recommendations for marketing a photo management business.
Oh, we could be here all day talking about this, because
How
marketing
about
is
the
kind of
top two or three?
one of my things. But I think the main thing is that you need to go out there and build a network, because if people don't know what you're doing in your community, then you're really missing a trick. So I moved to Scotland 7 years ago. As I said, I'd never lived in this part of Scotland before. I knew nobody apart from my parents-in-law. And so I made myself a challenge of going out and meeting one new person every week. And I've done it every single week, 7 years, no fail, even through the pandemic, because we had Zoom. I met one new person a week, and that's really helped me build my network and get my name out there. I was at a very small local photographic exhibition on Friday afternoon, and I just walked in and I met three of the four people who were in the exhibition knew me or knew of me or knew of my business, because I had been getting my name out there. And that's what it's all about. And it's free, apart from, the odd coffee or whatever. Going out there and marketing yourself by talking to people is free. And so anyone, even if you've got zero marketing budget, can do that, build their network. And it's something I feel really passionately about, and train a lot of professional organizers on, is that confidence about speaking about yourself. The other thing I would say is to get your messaging really, really clear. Now, here in Scotland, I am the only photo manager in the whole of Scotland. So I have nobody shouting about this amazing profession apart from myself and the photo managers behind me. But to generate interest in what I do and how I can help clients is all down to me in the local and regional market. So it's about PR, it's about talking to journalists, it's about talking to anyone that will listen about what you do and what you can do. And yes, it's a real job, because people say, oh, I never knew that was a real job. And so if they don't know that, they don't know that you're the solution for all their problems. So it's, I think we're really lucky in that respect. It can have its drawbacks that you're the only one shouting about your business, but at the same time, people are so interested because it's new. And so we always have something to talk about, don't we? So I'd really encourage people to get out there and talk to people about what it is that we do.
Agreed. Absolutely agree. It's essential, as a quarter of what you do should be that until you start,
Yeah, absolutely.
especially.
And especially at the
Um,
start, when you don't have a strong pipeline, where you don't have many projects, that is the time to be really making the most, because there will come a time when you're so busy with the photos that carving out that time for marketing is more difficult. So you've got a real kind of gift at the beginning to be working on a marketing strategy and working out how you're going to tell people about your wonderful business.
Right, right. I know I'm in Charlotte, so it's a rather large city in North Carolina, and I belong to the National Association of Women Business Owners, and I would highly recommend that as a start, because it's a very supportive group, a very active group. If you have it in your area, it is one way that you can get in and meet a lot of people who want to hear about your business. And it's a very comfortable environment, I have always found. So at least in the States, that's a good option. How about how to handle objections to the cost of the project?
So I'm a strong believer that our worth is really quite considerable, isn't it? If you want to invest in saving your photos and your family memories, it's going to cost you money. Now, if people object to the price, then there are other ways that they can organize their photos. as I've said, there's that coaching, there's that accountability, there's that do-it-yourself option, and I kind of blend different elements of that into a way that will fit with the client. But when I'm doing that, I make sure that I do not undersell myself. So it's still going to have a price tag on it. And it is what it, I mean, yeah, I mean, if they're objecting to the price, then I often see that as, an indication that they're maybe not the client for us at the moment. But I know that it's not a service that everybody can afford, especially at the moment when times are quite tough. So I think that goes back to your marketing and your messaging. Your brand and your image should be quite, not high end necessarily, but demonstrate the value and the cost point that you are aiming at so that people don't have surprises. I always think you should put a guide to your pricing on your website, because there's nothing worse than, clients, coming to you and having the sales call. And then when they hear the price, they're like, oh, no, can't do that. Or you don't hear from them again. It screens out the people that can afford to pay right from the beginning. And if you don't feel comfortable itemizing every single cost that you have, maybe give a couple of case studies of different jobs and an indication of what kind of price band they were in. But somehow on your website, demonstrate what your pricing is, and then you won't be wasting your time and wasting your potential clients' time if it's not a good fit. So yes, we're a premium service. We're not cheap, but there are people that will pay it. And honestly, we all know how long it takes to scan and to do all of the work on these photos. And we should not be selling ourselves short. And I think I learned that I'm still learning it, I'm still learning it. But I think it's something that is probably one of the most difficult things in the whole business, is that pricing and that feeling that you want to help everybody, but not everyone can afford, the done for you project. So there are different ways of helping people, but still keep your value if you're giving them a lesser hands-on option.
Excellent. I couldn't agree more. Where do your clients prefer to have their digital media when you are finished with their project, like a thumb drive or a cloud service or an external hard drive, multiple options? What do your clients prefer?
So I deliver them usually on an external hard drive, and then I coach them through how to make copies to fit into our backup system that we've put together at the beginning. So I don't tend to do much work remotely. I suppose I do with Apple Photos. I'll add them as a user on my computer, and I'll go in and I'll work on their collection. But I don't feel particularly comfortable doing that in any other systems. So I tend to organize everything here and then put it on an external hard drive and ship it to the client. I keep a copy of every client's work on my systems here for 6 months, and I tell them that. And then we do the backup protocol. I make sure they're happy with a follow-up call. And then a month before, so 5 months after we've finished, I'll get in touch with them and say, hey, you've got a month left. Are you good for me to delete everything off my system? Because have you got 3 copies of everything where you are? Have you got any other things that you've got questions about? And usually they're like, no, fine, it's all great. You can go ahead and delete. And I get them to sign a document that is, you can delete, and I delete them all, because I'm not a cloud service. I'm not a backup element. I'm just their photo organizer. And so I like to get everything out of my desk and make room for all the new clients. So that's how I deal with it.
Excellent. Excellent. How do you decide how much to charge for your services? Is it based on time? Is it based on the number of photos? Do you charge separately for scanning photos or negatives? And then when someone asks for a service you've never done before, like scanning 8mm film or something, how do you develop a pay scale for this?
Right. So first of all, I have a set fee for a basic digital organizing package. So if it's just organizing digital photos, then I charge a certain amount, and that covers from 3 different sources up to about, I don't know, I'm going to have to check my website, up to I think 50,000 photos from 3 different sources is a set amount. And that gives them a guideline. And then when we're talking, if it's more sources or much more photos than that, then I adjust the pricing. I say, well, that's going to be an extra, X £100. And that's always worked fine, because it gives people a guideline. So we're kind of taking that on the average, you know, what the average digital project is, and then priced for that. For scanning, I charge per photo, and this is something that I am still working on because I don't think I've been charging enough. And I like to do everything perfectly. It's the curator in me. I like everything with the right metadata and organized into the right subfolders. And I realized I was spending ages doing a bit of photo detective work to try and work out what year a certain photo might have been. And then realized most clients probably didn't need that level of detail. So now I've got a basic scan and, you know, cost per scanned photo. And then if they want all the bells and whistles and all the metadata and all of that, then that's a different cost. That's a higher cost per photo. But to be honest, I'm still working on that. I'm still not at a point where I think I'm charging enough for my time. And it's something I'm working on at the moment. So yeah,
And I think
it's a
you're right.
hard one, isn't it? Pricing, because
It
everything is.
really is. It's very,
I think,
and you know what? You will change,
yeah,
period. I mean, when you start, you'll be in one, and you know what? 3 months later, 2 months later, you might change it again, and then you might change it again. You
exactly.
have
And
to do what is comfortable for you and your system and the way you work. Do you agree?
exactly. And I absolutely agree with that. And I think how we can manage that is by keeping a record of how much we're charging. Obviously, we do that in our bookkeeping systems anyway, but break it down for each project. You know, how many thousand print photos, how many thousand digital photos, how many sources did this come from? How long did it take me? What was the additional work I had to do? So how much would that be if I charge per hour? And I do charge some things per hour. If I've got a new skill set to learn, or if it's something a bit different that doesn't fit into my usual pricing, I'll go back and say, yeah, well, that's, you know, that's a price per hour on top. You know, sometimes when we're working on the magnetic albums and it's a nightmare to try and get pictures out of the albums, I often charge an hourly rate if they don't just come out really easily. In fact, I always charge an hourly rate on top for extraction, because you can spend 2 hours on an album, can't you, taking really difficult photos out? And that is something that people don't really understand. And sometimes I will demonstrate that to them, or I'll get a sample album first. So that's something I charge an additional pricing for if it's going to take me a lot of time. But I think the main thing is to keep track for each project on what you're, you know, how many photos. And then you can start looking at averages and saying, well, that's where I came up with the 3 sources for 50,000 photos, because that was kind of my average. And so I only got that because I was tracking. And I think just keep as much data as you can about individual projects, how you feel about a project, what you're enjoying doing, what your inquiries are, all of that, because it's the data that we learn from our businesses that helps guide us with our systems and our strategies, our marketing, our pricing, and everything going forward. And the more you do it, the more you learn, and things change over time as well. So yeah, just track the data, and then use that to your advantage.
I couldn't agree with you more. Also, when I'm talking to younger photo managers who haven't been in the business long, I always say too, it's not only tracking what you do, but tracking the time it takes you to do it. So if it may, some photos you might get, let's say 10,000 photos, and it may take you X number of hours, and then the next client, oh my God, it takes twice as much. So then that way, if you've tracked every single one, then you can create an average from that.
And you win some, you lose some. You know, that's
Yeah.
the way it is. But actually, by having a package that is really well defined, that saves you time and therefore money anyway, because you know that that's the pricing for that package, and you're not having to think about too much and trying to work out a new pricing rate for that particular project, which saves you like an hour or 2 hours of your time. So having that basic package levels can really help you. And yeah, you win some, you lose some, but that's business.
Yeah, 100%. Absolutely. And we're gonna hit our final question for today. And you've given them a wealth of information. I know everybody's head spinning. How has the membership in the photo managers helped you and your business?
I don't think I would have a photo organizing business if it wasn't for the photo managers. I mean, seriously, I would still be the girl stuck with her PC and her fast photo scanner, and that would be all I was doing, and saying no to anyone that mentioned Apple. Um, I've been given so much training, so much camaraderie, so much teamwork, confidence as well, and always having like the photo managers in your corner saying, "Yep, you can do this," and being ready to share. And I've made some great friends through the photo managers as well. And I really, yeah, I think the resources that they provide us and that teamwork that I mentioned before have just been instrumental in my confidence and therefore my ability to grow that side of my business. So I really feel that if I wanted to, I could stop decluttering and organizing homes, and I could just stay in my office and do photos full time. But I'm not quite there yet. We're still like going out and about and driving through lovely Scotland. But yeah, I think we are so lucky to have a professional body that really puts the members and the members' needs right at the heart of everything that they do. You just have to look through the Facebook group and the website to see all the opportunities like this call this evening that we all have access to constantly, you know, all these opportunities coming our way. And I just think it's fantastic.
All right. And the last question, are you going to be able to join us in San Diego?
I don't think so. I would love to. Maybe one day. Maybe one day. It's a
That would
long
be
way
great.
from
We would
Scotland.
love to have you. It'd be nice and warm weather, I promise.
I know, I know. Maybe one day. It would be lovely to. Yeah.
Good, good. Well, we look forward to that. And thank you so much for just sharing your wonderful business and your expertise. And I know that everybody so appreciates your help. You've got some lovely comments, inspiring. This has been great and incredible information. So thank you so much. And I know we're going to share the chat with you so that you'll get all of that. But thank you so much.
Wonderful. Well, thank you so much for having me, and thank you for all the great questions. It's been really good fun.
Yeah, it was a great time meeting you. And maybe I can get to Scotland one day.
Yes. That would be.
All right. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Uh-huh. Bye-bye.
Bye.